Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. After seeing the light of the death god, Huo Yuhao realized that he couldn't do anything. He could only pray in his heart and hope that the death god Doluo wasn't a class 10 soul engineer. The Sun Moon Empire was already supported by the Holy Ghost Church. If the Dragon Emperor Doluo Long Xiaoyao teamed up with a Class 10 Soul Engineer, would the three empires of the Doluo continent still have a future? Huo Yuhao knew that he couldn't continue being a trooper. No matter how much he liked being in a military camp and guiding his own younger brother, the safety of the continent was more important than his own wishes. He had to return and tell the academy about the situation here right away, so that the Sea God's Pavilion could make a decision. This concerned the future of the Doluo continent. Shrek Academy definitely couldn't sit and watch as everything unfolded. It was just that he didn't know whether the Spirit Pagoda had been fully constructed. Fortunately, it seemed like there wouldn't be any action taken by the Great Star Do Forest for the moment. After taking one more deep look in the direction of the Mingdo mountain range, where the light of the death god had been unleashed from, Huo Yuhao bit his lip forcefully before turning around and quickly flying to the east. There wasn't any need to watch the fighting here. The Sun Moon Empire didn't need to attack. They just needed to guard the Mingdo mountain range, and they would achieve victory. As for the Heavenly Soul Empire, it was probably too late for any news to be sent to them. The Sun Moon Empire's attack should have already started. What Huo Yuhao could do now was immediately return to the academy and recount everything he had witnessed, so that the academy would know how to prepare. At the same time, they could make a decision. He couldn't be bothered to tell Shuyun as he rushed back. To him, every second and minute was now extremely crucial. After crossing the Star Luo Empire's military camp, he rapidly flew across Imperial Radiant City. After he passed the entire region covered by the military, he activated his flying-type soul tool and increased its speed to the maximum. The view beneath him changed continuously, and the night air was very clear. It was also slightly damp. One would normally feel refreshed after taking in a deep breath. However, Huo Yuhao only felt very cold and anxious inside. After the Sun Moon Empire started their attacks, they were actually so terrifying. It was something no one had expected. Even though they fought on two fronts, it was likely that they would still be able to suppress two empires at the same time. What should they do? The Star Luo Empire's temporary commander's tent. The White Tiger Duke Dai Hao looked very grim right now. Beside him was Princess Jojo, wearing a suit of white armor. Shu Jojo looked equally grim, and her expression was also a little pale. The fighting had already stopped, but the hazy Mingdo mountain range seemed to epitomize the gloom that hung over the Star Luo Empire right now. When the light of the death god swept across earlier, she felt as if her heart had been torn apart. 200 soul masters, who were at least soul sages, had been killed. The number included more than 10 soul Doluo. This was an unprecedentedly huge blow to the Star Luo Empire. More importantly, they weren't able to hurt their enemies at all, even after they suffered such heavy casualties. This was completely unacceptable. She was the one who had devised their strategy. After all the Soul Master legions were under her control. The White Tiger Duke's original plan had been to send some strong individuals to destroy the Sun Moon Empire's blockade in the air before thinking of a way to make a breakthrough. However, Shu Jojo was a little confused when she heard that the Sun Moon Empire hadn't kept anyone on the border. She was fully aware that the Star Luo Empire would be in a crisis if the Heavenly Soul Empire fell. It was why she insisted on sending Soul Masters that were at least Soul Sages to probe and drain the Sun Moon Empire's defenses. After that, they could take them down in one fell swoop. However, the final result mercilessly proved that her strategy was a mistake. Leading the Soul Master legions as a princess of the Star Luo Empire, she had only brought huge losses and casualties to them. Right now, all the commanders of the Soul Master legions were present. All of them looked very dismal, and the way they looked at Princess Jojo was very different from before. After taking a deep breath, Shu Jojo stood up and bowed. She wasn't a person who shirked her responsibilities. Today's defeat is on me. I was the one who made the decision, and my incorrect strategy brought us heavy losses. Marshal, I'll account to His Majesty myself. At the same time, I'll fully coordinate with all of you from now on, and listen to all of your arrangements. Shu Jiujiu was an important member of the imperial family. She was fully aware that the most important thing for the Star Luo Empire right now was resisting the Sun Moon Empire. She put down her face as a princess and admitted her mistake to the White Tiger Duke. Dai Hao stood up and walked over to Shu Jiujiu's side. He made a lifting gesture and lifted her up with his soul power. Your Highness, you don't have to act like this. Our failure this time cannot be attributed to you alone. As a marshal, I'm not blameless, either. Furthermore, things happened beyond our expectations. The Sun Moon Empire unleashed that ray of white light from the Mingdo mountain range. We don't even know what it is. However, I can clearly sense that even a titled Doluo wouldn't have been able to resist it. Our priority now is to find out what the strength of that ray of white light is, as well as what price the Sun Moon Empire has to pay to unleash it. We've already alerted the Heavenly Soul Empire. I suggest that we let the reinforcements from the Douling Empire enter the Heavenly Soul Empire's territories to aid them, and also send some of our reinforcements to support them. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for us to breach the Mingdo mountain range temporarily. While Dai Hao was extremely displeased with Shu Jiujiu's decision earlier, he also understood what it meant to look at the big picture at the right time. Their priority now wasn't putting the blame on anyone, but how they could turn things around on the battlefield. They were already in a very disadvantageous situation. The Sun Moon Empire had demonstrated the edge soul tools possessed in this battle. With that terrifying ray of white light threatening them, how could it possibly be easy to breach the Sun Moon Empire's defenses? It was a completely irresistible attack. Furthermore, it wasn't that ray of white light that dampened their chances the most, it was the lack of surveillance. According to the White Tiger Duke's original plan, he had wanted to attack before the Sun Moon Empire discovered them, and invite all the titled Doluo to move at the same time to destroy the surveillance soul tools of the Sun Moon Empire. This would allow them to retrieve some control over the air, as well as reduce the Sun Moon Empire's surveillance on them. However, Shu Jiujiu's impatience had lost them this opportunity. The Sun Moon Empire's surveillance soul tools had already been pulled back within their defensive perimeter. It would be much more difficult to destroy them now. With the presence of that ray of white light, that could even threaten a titled Doluo's life, which titled Doluo would be willing to take action now. It was equivalent to courting death. Under such circumstances, they were completely unaware of the Sun Moon Empire's troop deployments in the Mingdo mountain range. In addition, they were completely under surveillance over here. How were they going to fight? They didn't stand any chance of breaching the Sun Moon Empire's defenses. They could only be content with an alternative option right now, and use the stupidest methods to aid the Heavenly Soul Empire. The effect wasn't going to be very good. At the same time, the Star Luo Empire's northern defense line had to be strengthened. Shu Jiujiu didn't continue. After she expressed her full support for the White Tiger Duke, she quickly returned to her position and sat down. She was dealt the heaviest blow this time after their defeat. She was initially still a little unconvinced by the White Tiger Duke. However, she now realized that she was lost in the face of this crisis, while the White Tiger Duke was still able to seek opportunities in the midst of it. He neatly disseminated orders to his subordinates. It was only at dawn the next day that the White Tiger dispersed the military conference. The commanders all left, while Princess Jojo remained where she was without moving at all. Your Highness, you've also toiled an entire night. Go back and rest, Dai Hao said to Shu Jiujiu. Shu Jiujiu's body jerked a little, and she was a little lost as she looked back at Dai Hao. She stood up and walked in front of him. Suddenly, her knees fell to the ground with a thud, and she knelt in front of Dai Hao. Duke, I was wrong. I was the one who caused the Empire to suffer such heavy losses. Dai Hao hurriedly lifted her up and furrowed his brow as he said, Your Highness, why do you have to do this? I mentioned that you can't be solely to blame for our failure. No one expected the Sun Moon Empire to possess such a terrifying soul tool. Shu Jiujiu shook her head mournfully and said, "No, I know that it's my fault. If I had followed your original plan and destroyed the enemy's surveillance soul tools first, we wouldn't be so passive now. No matter how strong that ray of white light is, it can only cover a certain region. If not for my impatience and concentration of all the soul masters, we wouldn't have suffered such huge losses. Duke, save the Empire." Dai Hao sighed and said, "Your Highness, the Empire is also my home. As long as I'm still alive, I won't allow any invaders to destroy my home. Don't worry, I'll do my best. However, please help me tell His Majesty that our northern defense line needs to be strengthened. In addition, we can't stop resisting the Sun Moon Empire's attacks here. We must put pressure on them. This is the greatest help we can give the Heavenly Soul Empire. At the same time, I'll need you to think of a way to send a batch of outstanding soul masters to try to sneak into the Sun Moon Empire. Without any surveillance and intelligence, we can't win this war." "All right, I'll do my best to coordinate with you." Shu Jiujiu left in a hurry. She couldn't possibly rest. After watching Shu Jiujiu leave, Dai Hao said, "Someone call Luoli over for me." "Yes." It was not long before Dai Luoli was led into the tent by the White Tiger's bodyguards. After arriving at the front line, the White Tiger Duke had arranged for Dai Yueheng to temporarily look after Dai Luoli and stop him from running about. When Dai Hao saw Dai Luoli last night, he was also stunned. The defense around the city he was in was very strict. He didn't know how Dai Luoli had entered without being spotted. After that, Dai Luoli shocked him by telling him everything he knew. He didn't have the time to probe any further then, and had immediately called for a conference before the military set out. Things had finally settled down, and he had time to call Dai Luoli over. Dai Yueheng came over with Dai Luoli. He didn't ostracize his younger brother, but wasn't close to him either. After all, they had the same father, but different mothers. Dai Yueheng even treated Dai Huobin, who shared the same parents as him, as his competitor. As for Dai Luoli, he hardly felt any kinship with him at all. "Marshal." Dai Luoli addressed Dai Hao as Marshal instead of father. At the same time, he performed a military salute. Dai Hao furrowed his brow as he noticed Dai Luoli was dressed like a small team leader. "How did you enter the city? Did you join the military?" Dai Luoli nodded. "I'm the small team leader of a group of recruits from the 6th Reserve Legion. I'm a private first class. No one knows I'm a soul master, though. When I was doing my recruit training, I was promoted to a bodyguard of the battalion commander. As for how I entered the city, I'm afraid I can't tell you right now." Dai Hao's face turned gloomier. "Tell me. If you don't, you'll be punished as a spy." Dai Yueheng hurriedly said, "Father, the information Luoli is offering is very important. Don't you think?" Dai Hao glared at him and said, "There are no families in the army. There are only superiors and subordinates." "What did you call me?" "Yes, Marshal." Dai Yueheng quickly changed the way he greeted Dai Hao. Dai Hao was very stern towards all his sons. Dai Hao returned his attention to Dai Luoli, who appeared very persistent. He said, "Luoli, the information that you have brought us this time is indeed very important. However, the source of your information is also very important. If you're being used by an enemy, the entire Northwestern Field Army will be killed along with you. This is why you must report the source of your information, and how you managed to enter the city. I can only judge it accurately if you tell me this." After listening to his father's words, Dai Luoli seemed to waver a little. However, he still resisted. "Marshal, I'm confident that the person who told me all this information isn't an enemy. His information is definitely accurate." Dai Hao was already fatigued after an entire night spent in a military conference. He wasn't in a good mood now, and thus shouted, "Who is he?" Dai Luoli said, He's my master." "Master?" Dai Hao was stunned. "Since when did you have a master?" he asked doubtfully. Dai Luoli had already expected his father to interrogate him. He had also promised Huo Yuhao that he wouldn't reveal his identity. This was why he thought of a way to talk his way out of this interrogation. The clever thing about him was that he didn't say everything the moment he appeared in front of Dai Hao. Instead, he revealed everything slowly. This enabled him to gain his father's trust more easily. He only became my master a short while ago. He was also the one who allowed me to join the military, as he thinks that the military is a good way to train myself. He's normally absent, and will only appear when he's teaching me. He managed to find out that there aren't any soldiers from the Sun Moon Empire at the Mingdo mountain range before he proceeded to inform me. He knows my relationship with you, and thus he asked me to travel the entire night to deliver this information to you. As for how I entered the city, my master has a special ability that allows him to conceal himself. He brought me into the city by concealing both of us. After hearing the word conceal, Dai Hao twitched visibly. He hurriedly asked, "Is your master's martial soul a spiritual type?" "How did you know that?" Dai Laali was the shocked one now. Just because he possessed the ability to conceal himself didn't mean that his martial soul was spiritual type. Some special martial souls possessed such an ability as well. Dai Hao paused for a moment, then asked, "Is his height around 1 meter and 90 centimeters, and he has a slender and proportionate figure?" "What?" Dai Laali became more and more shocked. Dai Hao was describing Huo Yuhao. From the look on Dai Laali's face, Dai Hao guessed his answer. He also looked much friendlier now. "I might know who he is. If he's the one, the information should be fine. How did he take you as a disciple? What did he teach you?" Dai Laali replied, "I met him when I was cultivating outside the Duke's mansion for the first time. He was alone then, and he wore a mask. I couldn't see him clearly. He didn't say he wanted to teach me at the start, but suddenly attacked me. I retaliated as I was attacked, but he managed to take me down without even using his martial soul. After that, he kept on provoking me and making me furious so as to make me keep fighting him. It was only when I couldn't get up anymore that he left. Ever since then, he has kept on appearing. Every time he appears, he beats me up very badly." As he spoke until this point, Dai Laali's true emotions started to flow. During those days, every day had seemed very long. Dai Yueheng was doubtful as he asked, "He always beats you up. Why did he become your master then?" From the look in his eyes, he was hinting that Dai Laali deserved to be beaten up by accepting the person who had beaten him up as his master. Dai Laali was not very close to his brother, and so snorted, "Yes, he beats me up. However, he has helped to greatly increase my abilities. Father, I'm already at rank 40. I'll be a soul ancestor once I obtain my soul ring." The moment he talked about this joyous matter, he couldn't be bothered to address Dai Hao as Marshal anymore. "Oh?" Dai Hao's eyes brightened. He hadn't had much expectations for Dai Laali. After all, he had improved much slower than Dai Yueheng and Dai Huabin, even though he cultivated tirelessly, because of the mutation of his martial soul. He had not even qualified to enter Shrek Academy. He was only at rank 30 not long ago. In just a few months, he was now rank 40. This rate of increase wasn't achievable by just any ordinary soul master. The mysterious guy Dai Hao was thinking of was naturally the masked man, who had saved him twice, and given him a Sun Moon divine needle. He was indeed very grateful to that guy. Not only did that guy save him twice, but he even saved his bodyguards. If that guy was Dai Laali's teacher, everything would make sense. "How did your cultivation increase so quickly? Did your master make it happen for you?" Dai Hao asked. Dai Laali laughed bitterly. "You could say that. My master said that while my martial soul is mutated, it's not a bad mutation. It's because the mutation was incomplete, and the strength of my martial soul wasn't stimulated. He beat me up to intensify the mutation of my martial soul under extreme emotional conditions, so that the strength of my martial soul would be completely unleashed. I myself don't understand what happened. However, my soul power has increased very quickly, and my martial soul seems to have changed too." After hearing his words, both Dai Hao and Dai Yueheng couldn't help but be shocked. The mutation of a martial soul wasn't very uncommon in the continent. However, most mutations of martial souls were for the worse. After these mutations, the original pure bloodline became much weaker. Only a few martial souls became stronger after mutating. Dai Yueheng also came from Shrek Academy. However, he could recall that the academy had expended a lot of effort on research into mutated martial souls. Even so, the results that they achieved weren't ideal. If it was possible to alter the level of mutation of a soul master's martial soul, then this mysterious guy could be considered the best in his research of mutated martial souls. Dai Hao said, "All right. Unleash your martial soul for me to see." "All right." Dai Laali acknowledged, and also heaved a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, he had managed to scam his way through. Lights shone, and 3 soul rings slowly rose from beneath his feet. At the same time, he became much taller, and white fur started to grow from his body. Just like before, there weren't any black stripes that were special to white tigers. Rather, his body was completely white. However, Dai Hao and Dai Yueheng were both astonished. After Dai Laali's martial soul had been completely unleashed, his soul power started to change. Dai Laali seemed to become illusory in their eyes. After this, the fur on his body also exuded a dim blood-colored glow. This blood-colored glow didn't have any unclean aura, but was instead filled with elegance. It even carried strong spiritual undulations within it. Dai Hao suddenly lifted his hand and grabbed towards Dai Laali's chest. Dai Laali's body subconsciously flashed, and he squatted down towards his side. At the same time, he reached out against his father's palm with his tiger claws. He was extremely quick. Dai Hao withdrew his hand and was impressed as he said, "It's indeed different. Your reaction speed is far beyond your cultivation. How do you feel after your martial soul has mutated?" Dai Laali said, "Master said that my martial soul should be called a blood tiger after this mutation. Under certain circumstances, it can enter a berserk state on its own once stimulated. However, my cultivation is still lacking now, and my spiritual power isn't strong enough yet. Once it's stronger, I can become much calmer even when I go berserk. What my master means is that my spiritual and soul power can fuse with each other perfectly after I go berserk, which enables me to unleash a fighting strength that is beyond my original abilities. It's just that I can't be in that state for very long, but that duration will increase along with my cultivation." Dai Hao seemed to be thinking of something. Dai Yueheng was doubtful as he asked, "Don't tell me you'll develop some innate skill after your mutation is completed. Isn't this something only soul beasts possess?" Dai Laali was unhappy as he asked, "Who said so?" "Elder brother, I can't believe that you're a scholar from Shrek Academy. My master said that this is similar to the body sect's second awakening of body souls. This is because the strength of all my soul skills will increase after I enter a berserk state." Dai Hao was suddenly enlightened after he heard Dai Laali drawing a comparison to the body sect. "Yes, it's a second awakening, just like what happens in the body sect. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. Where is your master now?" Dai Laali shook his head and said, "I don't know. Didn't I tell you earlier that is very mysterious? He can only find me, I can't find him. He has never even let me see his true appearance." "Dad, surely he's not a bad guy, right?" Dai Hao nodded and laughed bitterly. "Of course he's not a bad guy. I know this person you're talking about. From your description of him, he should be the person who's saved me twice now. So it turns out that he's your teacher, no wonder. Perhaps he saved me because of you. Not only is this person mysterious, but is also very powerful. If your teacher finds you again, you must help me express my gratitude to him. If he's willing, I even want to thank him face to face. He saved your life twice." Dai Laali was shocked. Although he couldn't believe that the mysterious guy his father mentioned was his own elder brother, he still believed that Huo Yuhao was capable of saving his father twice. "Elder brother, why do you have to be like that? Why aren't you willing to reunite with him?" Huo Yuhao naturally wouldn't reunite with the White Tiger Duke. He would not do so before he believed he was strong enough. By the time he reached Shrek City, it was already noon. Shrek City's reconstruction was in full swing. From afar, a lot of construction work could be seen, especially the Spirit Pagoda, which was near the Great Star Do Forest and undergoing a grand construction. Huo Yuhao didn't even return to the Tang sect first, but immediately went to Shrek Academy. He wanted to pass the information on to Elder Xian for him to make a decision. Even though he was one of the members of the Sea Gods Pavilion, Huo Yuhao didn't fly directly into the academy. He stopped outside the gate before briskly walking into the academy. It was lesson time now, the academy was empty. After passing the statues of the members of the first generation Shrek's 7 monsters and Golden Triangle, Huo Yuhao came to the lakeside of the Sea Gods Lake. It was only then that he rose into the air before riding the waves towards the Sea Gods Island. The expansion of Shrek City was a good thing for Shrek Academy. Furthermore, the relationship between Shrek and the Great Star Do Forest was unprecedentedly harmonious, because of the Spirit Pagoda, even though the beast tide had caused huge losses to both parties. It had been months since students from Shrek Academy had entered the forest to hunt for soul beasts. The Great Star Do Forest was very pleased regarding this. To them, this was a demonstration of Shrek Academy's sincerity. Of course, more students were obtaining spirits through the establishment of the Spirit Pagoda, and under the cooperation of both parties. Without a doubt, they were the greatest beneficiaries of the Spirit Pagoda. As he stepped onto Sea God's Island, a sense of familiarity swept over Huo Yuhao. The refreshing air lessened his anxiety. It's great to be back home. It'd be nice if Donga were still around. If Donga were around, and there was no more hatred, I could just live with her on this island. Our days would be so happy. Donga. Donga. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao's eyes widened. He couldn't believe it as he looked forward, and his body started to shake uncontrollably. This is. A young lady was walking towards him. Her eyes were powdery blue, and her eyelashes were long and curly. She was very slender, and her long, powdery blue hair flowed behind her hand. She was dressed in a white dress that accentuated her ravishing looks. She looked like a goddess. Donga. Huo Yuhao exclaimed. As he was overly agitated, his voice sounded very high. In the next instant, Huo Yuhao used his instant teleportation and appeared in front of this young lady. He opened his arms and tightly embraced her. Huo Yuhao hadn't expected to see Wang Donga again under such a circumstance and at such a time. All his worries and anxiety disappeared at this moment. All his emotions and yearning erupted. His tears flowed uncontrollably, and his vision had already turned blurry from all the tears. The young lady stood where she was. She seemed to have been stunned by the sudden embrace that she had received. Donga, 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 Huo Yuhao's tears dripped onto and slipped off her wavy, powdery blue hair. They seemed to add a glow to it. Are you courting death? An embarrassed voice sounded. Immediately after this, Huo Yuhao felt as if the person he was hugging had turned into an active volcano. She unleashed a massive force and broke free from his embrace. Following this, Huo Yuhao saw the fury in her eyes. Her thin and slender hand reached out for his chest. Huo Yuhao subconsciously used his ghost shadow perplexing track to avoid the terrifying force that was coming towards him. At the same time, he used his hands to block in front of him. Bang! Vigorous soul power was unleashed. Huo Yuhao felt an aura of light filled with strength sweeping towards him. It was like huge waves were crashing in front of him. After he fused with Wang Chioa as a sacrifice, he had inherited part of her golden dragon's strength. However, he was still forced back more than 10 steps, as he wasn't prepared for Wang Donga's palm. A gap opened between them, and Huo Yuhao was a little stunned. He couldn't believe that Wang Donga had made a move against him. She wore a fierce look on her face, and her soul rings rose from her feet. 6 of them were black and 1 was red. She had already lifted her right hand towards Huo Yuhao. Her face was very cold, and there was an embarrassed look in her eyes. It was evident that she was cross that Huo Yuhao had hugged her earlier. She even felt that she was being squeezed right now, which made her feel weird. An intense bluish-gold light formed on her palm, and her second soul ring lit up. The dazzling bluish-gold lights adopted the form of a whirlpool, and a terrifying sense of suppression instantly locked onto Huo Yuhao's body. Huo Yuhao became more clear-headed when he was subjected to this heavy pressure. As he looked at the young lady's eyes, he shuddered. You aren't Donga. He was sure that Wang Donga wouldn't look at him like this. Just as he was speaking, the young lady had already slapped her right hand towards him. A ball of blinding bluish gold light carrying the sound of a low-pitched dragon roar surged towards his chest. As this ball of bluish gold light was unleashed, the bluish gold glow behind her also surged and turned into countless streaks of light that suppressed Huo Yuhao from all directions. A strong sense of restraint engulfed Huo Yuhao. She's so strong. She's definitely not Donga. However, I can feel a trace of Donga in her strength. While he thought of this, Huo Yuhao also moved. He also lifted his right hand. His 3 red and 4 orange soul rings shone brightly. His first soul ring flashed, and his right hand was covered in diamond ice crystals. Every crystal was shining extremely brightly, helping him block the ball of bluish gold light. The moment that ball of light touched Huo Yuhao's right hand, streaks of light were deflected by the ice crystals in all directions. Only a portion of them managed to take effect against him. The diamond ice crystals quickly spread across Huo Yuhao's entire body, blocking the suppression and shockwaves that came as the ball of bluish gold light blew apart. It was the first soul skill of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion, Ice Empress Armor. A layer of dim azure light was also released from Huo Yuhao's body, preventing the restraint from affecting him. What? The young lady was stunned that her attack didn't have much effect. Her eyes flashed again, and the lights from her other soul rings also started to surge. Stop. We might have a misunderstanding, Huo Yuhao hurriedly said. Whether this young lady was Donga or not, how would he be willing to lay his hands on her? The young lady retracted her bluish gold light slightly, but she still seemed as unfriendly as ever. Misunderstanding. How dare you violate me and claim that it's a misunderstanding? Her voice was crisp and captivating. However, she indeed sounded different from Wang Donga. She was more arrogant than Wang Donga, and she was also colder. However, they were equally sweet. Huo Yuhao was simply too familiar with Wang Donga, so he could differentiate between them. Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly. I'm sorry, I might have recognized you wrongly. You look too much like my friend. That's why I... The young lady was still furious. Can you just hug me whenever you want just because I look like her? I don't believe that anyone looks like me. Ever since I came to this irksome academy, many people have told me that I look like someone. But I'm me. The rest are fine. They only comment that I look like that person. But you've offended me and even hugged me. If I don't whack you today, I won't be appeased. This video will end here.